All right, boys, we're back in full force here on 5 to Go. We're going to give you the good, the bad, the ugly, and maybe something great out of Talladega. We'll also go through the big news out of Spire Motorsports and regarding the All-Star race over this past week. All of that coming out just after our last episode. Oh, yeah, and we're going to preview Texas Motor Speedway. I'll be on the ground there with PRN. This is 5 to Go. And welcome, everybody, to episode 311. Yes, all mixed up and amber and whatnot. Yeah, come on, 90s alternative. Look it up, Devin. This is episode 311 of the 5 to Go podcast here at GoPRN.com and Apple and Spotify, and also on my YouTube page. I'm your co-host, Doug Turnbull, back from vacation in the Azores here, and so thankful for the gentlemen that join me to keep this thing going, keeping the streak alive. First off, he got his intro wrong on the last show when he was hosting it. He's the roving racing journo, and he goes the roving journalist or whatever Doug calls me, I think is what he said last time. But he's a roving racing journo, a multimedia enthusiast at University of North Georgia, and he's all shined up, getting ready to do a news report there for UNG and Dahlonega, whatnot. Devin Kupka, how you doing today, bud?
I'm doing good, sandwiched in between a very busy week. Talladega was my last, I wouldn't say weekend off, but it kind of is kind of my last weekend off. No UNG sporting events at home as we get ready to host Peach Belt Conference tournament for both baseball and softball this weekend. So we've got a quite a busy stretch ahead of us. And we got regionals, all that, Coca-Cola 600, so we got a whole bunch of things cooking.
That's big, yeah. And you did get to go to Talladega, but you were not on duty per se. You were out there in the grandstands slumming it with the plebes, all right? So we'll hear what Devin has to say about the vibe in the Talladega bleachers here in just a moment. Also joining us from the High Speed Garage at Dawsonville, Georgia, flanked by, I would say, decades of great racing memorabilia, but he also grinds those gears and makes things go fast. He's the Doctor of Speed, Dan Elliott. How you doing?
I am decades old, so I can do that.
Yeah, I'm old enough now to have stuff that's decades of stuff around me too. Not in this room here in my studios.
As I tell my children, everything I've got's older than they are.
and it's all theirs one day, and they go, "Yay!" No.
Yeah, they're excited about that. They're counting the days.
That's it. Well, we're going ahead to Texas, looking back at Talladega. Dan, is that now? I heard you. I listened to the show. I didn't watch the video last week, but I heard you describing a picture on the show. Did you put a new picture up to your left this week? To our right?
I did. That was a picture my mom had here, and it was one of the ceremonies that we got together, and we had a car there, and then one from what was the museum here, her and one of the people that helped her work here at the museum. So yeah, a lot of history, and I like to show different things, so I thought it appropriate.
I love
especially that. Pictures with mom and dad in it, and I think that's what I love the most about it is mother gets very little credit for a lot of things, and she was so behind the scenes important. In the museum wouldn't have been here without mother. So there's a lot of history here, and I like the opportunity to be able to show people that, yeah, I had a mom and she was important to the team as well.
Yeah, just because she didn't have her name listed as George Elliott, the team owner, back when everything got started, she was doing so much behind the scenes to make that happen over there. What if anything, did your mom do professionally? I mean, obviously she raised the family and made it so you all could fly, but did she work at the dealerships? Did she have another separate job from your dad?
Yeah, yep. She worked, and all the things that Daddy did, they were together in all the things. So first started with the building supply, and she kept the books for the building supply. She also kept up with the office and was the face of the office. And then as we got into the Ford dealership, then she was very on site and very much seen there, and very much a part of that because she kept books for that as well. And mother, to me, died young. She was only 70 when she passed. So there were a lot of, she left a big pair of shoes to fill as well in the void that was, and she was so deep in the museum here. The museum had just started, so she was so deep in it, and everything I come in and everything that I see of the things that are hanging or the things that I like to put out and display, it's her. So it helps keep the memory alive for me with her.
God bless her, my friend. And Thank you for sharing that. So, yeah, you're in what was the site, we've said it before, of the original Elliott Family Racing Museum. And, of course,
Yeah, but it
the
was the original building that the chassis work was done in. It was the
yeah,
original building. Well, it was actually the second one, but it really was the first building. Wasn't very much to look at, and it was small. And as the team expanded, this was the first real building, and this building had 4 expansions, so it grew quite a bit in a short period of time.
fascinating stuff there in Dawsonville, Georgia. I
Mm.
look forward to the chance I get to come up there again and hang out, because that was so much fun when we did that show this past summer. Well, today we're looking at Talladega Super Speedway, and it's fitting we're talking about Talladega here. And this race has had this similar date for a long time. I think going back at least to my fandom of the sport in 2001. And that means it's always very close to Dale Earnhardt's birthday, his heavenly birthday, of course. He passed away in 2001, but he was born on April the 29th. So I had to rock the Dale Earnhardt hat that is an actual hat from the 90s, not one that was ironically made to throw back to the 90s, that I basically was given to me from a friend of a friend who had a bunch of older NASCAR stuff there. So rest in peace, Dale Earnhardt there. Would have been 74 years old today. Would have been 74 years old today. And I wonder how much he would have had to say about what he saw in the Jack Links 500 if he was down here chopping it up with us and talking about that. And so let's get into it. First off, so I was flying back from Boston, actually. We spent the night in Boston, but flying back from the Azores, the long way back home. And I actually landed in Atlanta and started watching the race on my phone. It's amazing. You can't do this with the Xfinity series. I was watching the race on my phone. Isn't that wild? Yes. So I was getting to watch it on my phone on the MARTA train, riding from the airport, the Atlanta airport, back home. And then I had to run errands and pick up pets and stuff. So I got to listen to about half of it on the radio and then watch the last segment at home. So I got a multimedia varied experience there. And the way I would describe that is we all knew going in. I mean, Devin sent us the text right when the green flag for the Jack Links 500 dropped. The fuel-saving 500 has begun. And we knew what we were going to see, at least in the stages, right? And then it continued into the third stage, leading up to the last pit stop. And basically what I was waiting on was 2 things. The time bomb ticking for who's going to take control of this race, the time bomb ticking for if the big crash is going to break out. And as it turned out, there really wasn't a sole driver that took control of the race really until the very end. It was really more of a manufacturer thing. And the big one, Devin, your view for the stands, never quite broke out. We had a couple of crashes in stage 1 and then ran the entire stage 3 under green. So what I want to do, and of course we're going to get your view for the stands, Dan's view from watching it and participating in a bunch of these races, is give me one good, one pro for Talladega, and one bad. Austin Cindric went to victory lane. We know that. And we had a couple disqualifications. We'll get into those there with Ryan Preece and Joey Logano. But, Dev, you were in the middle of the great unwashed there. What did you see?
Well, I think the first thing I saw when I got to the track on Sunday morning was that the traffic was a little bit much. I was like, okay, traffic moved a little bit slower. What ended up, I think, I haven't seen anything official, was the biggest crowd at Talladega that I've seen, because the section where I was sitting normally has a bunch of empty seats, and I'm past start finish line in the tower area.
Okay.
But normally it's pretty empty, and there was a lot of people there on Sunday, and the crowd was pretty big. I'd say that was really the big pro of everything. It was good to see a big crowd there at Talladega for the Cup race, but I would say the big con, and I think we discussed this last week, is the fuel savings.
Yeah.
The thing about it, the 3 wide, the 4 wide racing, you just know when you're watching it that nothing's gonna happen out of that. They're just there to fuel. They're racing to save fuel, and you see that in the pack. And they're racing in quotation marks, but they're really just holding back, which allows to see that, yes, it's spectacular to the eye, but once you figure out that what they're doing, they're not really racing for each other. So it's like slot cars. And if you saw a comparison, I saw a comparison on X between the finish of the Xfinity race and the finish of the Cup race. I think it's 2 different things that you see there. Xfinity cars are able to move around, go where they need to. But when you look at the Cup Series cars, it's slot cars. You had Austin Cindric there, and you had Ryan Preece. 1-2, locked up, taking up the front row, and them practically not moving at all and nobody making moves behind them.
Yeah.
I would say that was the biggest con about the race on Sunday, because it just felt like a whole lot of nothing happened.
Well, that's the thing is you kept waiting and waiting, and that's what I was thinking. To me, it would have paid off if you're waiting and waiting through all the strategy to see who takes control at the end, and maybe it's mano y mano, and you have the two lines, and if someone gets out of line, makes a run, takes it 3 wide. But the problem is with the cars is to make that third line to really open up the box to move, because that track you could technically be 4 wide, maybe even you can't hold it, but you could stay even 5 in some parts if you had to. But it's all about momentum and having that helper, and just nobody could pull out a line. It wasn't worth it. If Kyle Larson had wanted to pull out a line, he wouldn't have been able to. So let me ask you this, Devin, and then I want to get to Dan's one good, one bad. We have a promo that runs on Performance Racing Network, and the audio I used from it was of you from that Talladega race weekend back in the fall, saying they were 4 wide and everybody in the stands were on their feet. That like exhilarated by what they were seeing. That was also only the 4th super, and I'm excluding Atlanta, only the 4th Daytona or Talladega race they'd seen that year. So we were kind of onto the fuel saving thing, but it wasn't quite as teeth clenching as maybe this one was. What was the vibe in the crowd, kind of waiting for this moment, and what were people's reactions to the field being 3 and 4 wide?
Well, I would say, honestly, the crowd reaction compared to last year, I think the knowledge has come out, because now this is a normal thing that we see. That's one thing too. That was still kind of a newer thing last year in 2024, the fuel saving, the 3-4 wide at Talladega. I remember seeing it in the spring race as well. But the crowd reaction to it, everybody stood up at the beginning of the race. That happened. But I think the most jarring part of it all, even the 3-4 wide, people were looking at it, but it wasn't like what it was last year.
Yeah.
But the thing I thought was the most interesting thing I saw on Sunday was the fact that we were getting to 3-4 laps to go. People were not standing up at all. And just, you could feel the energy off the crowd. I don't think
That's crazy.
any of us stood up maybe until 2 laps to go, maybe not even until the final lap. But like, I could tell you it wasn't within until the last 2 laps until people actually started standing up, which was very, very odd for any race, because normally mile and a half or whatnot, people start standing up with around probably 10 to go, 5 to go, around there. But the fact that the crowd didn't start standing up till 2 to go, and then another thing too, leaving the grandstands, you hear a lot of people going woo, 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 or and all that, like let's go, let's go. Not like an NFL game or anything like that, because there's more fans of a particular team, but there's 40 drivers out here. But you just didn't feel that. It just felt like we just left an event and we're leaving quietly, and it just kind of felt odd. It just felt
the energy was off because the race never like exploded.
Yeah, exactly, because the car never gave.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think so it's going to be easy to criticize. There is one good thing that I'll pull out, because my con is basically that, right? Is that you just didn't see. It's like you had this crescendo, and I'll watch a whole race for crescendo. I was waiting for it at Darlington. At one point I was waiting for it at Darlington to see if William Byron would just lead the whole bloody race. I mean, that'd be kind of, every once in a while, cool. At Bristol, I don't know that I was waiting for anything, because it kind of seemed like it was signed, sealed, and delivered, unless there was going to be a late crash or something like that. But at Talladega, you're waiting for it. Okay, crescendo. Who's the person that's going to make the move and either totally fail at it or get shucked out of the lead, or the person that's going to make the wrong move and cause the big crash? And I actually liked that this race. My big good is I like that it finished under green. I'm okay with that. But it's only worth it if they're actually able to make moves, and all the cars are just stuck to each other, and there wasn't a lot of movement. There was one movement thing, and then I'm going to get to you, Dan. There was one deal that happened at the finish that actually opened it up, and if it had happened maybe 2 laps earlier, we might have seen more. Ty Dillon in the Colleague Racing number 10 ran out of fuel. And I remember thinking he was in the top 10, and then you just saw the 10 go straight back. What happened? Why did he get out of line? He was out of fuel. These cars were the end of their fuel run too, because they only took a couple seconds of fuel on that last green flag stop. When that happened, it perforated that 2 wide log jam just enough that Bubba Wallace, and I don't know if you saw this on social media, guys, or not, that from his own car cam, those are available on Max now, right? Bubba Wallace went from 20th to about 10th on the last lap because he just said F it and went 3 wide middle because it just broke up the field enough. And he actually, I saw him wedge it between Austin Dillon on the inside and another on the outside and make contact, wheel well to wheel well. And it just didn't translate. You just didn't see it on TV because the leaders were stuck. That's who you care about, is the leaders. If you had a couple more cars running out of fuel or something to just till the dirt a little bit, you would have had a little more. Dan, I want to get to you. I know that was like, okay, I had to wait 10 minutes to tell my opinion on the race. Come on, man. No, but Dan, one good and one bad at Talladega. I know there's a lot of reasons to fume about it, but what'd you see?
No, waiting was just like Talladega. The anticipation, and you get to the end, and it was such a letdown. But
Is that how this podcast is going to be? No.
Yeah, but I hope we don't leave fans the way that I left Talladega as far as seeing the end. The pro to this was the fact that you didn't have the big one, that the big one didn't happen, because I definitely don't want to see anybody get hurt. And the con to this was, to me, the fact that I happened to be on Facebook a couple of hours later to see that cars got disqualified.
Yeah.
I like to see the end of the race and know that this is where people finished, or relatively certain. But to my point back on, we've talked about this before, is we need to do this show after the penalty phases are complete. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And it's not our fault.
Neither team is appealing these, by the way. They just said, I don't think anything's getting appealed on this one.
And I know we'll talk more about this as you get into more of the show, but the fact that this penalty deal is just unreal to me, and I guess the fact that the worst con for me was the fact that if you did pull out of line, if you didn't have a group going with you, or you didn't have support, you were going absolutely to the back of the field. And I think that is one of the things about this car that is so bad to me, is the fact that you can't make any moves. And it looked to me like, as you got down to the last laps of the race, either everybody was afraid of causing the big one, or they were content with where they were and the fact that they were going to leave Talladega with the car intact and their points, because all of this is going to be important, because you're going to have races that you fall out of, and you're trying to make the best of every race. And I think that's what the drivers up front, I think that's what they did, because I could see some of those drivers from second, third, fourth, fifth row that could have forced the issue and made some moves. And I don't think they would have been, I honestly don't think they would have been forcing the issue to the point that they would have caused the big ones. They would have taken some chances, but I think that there were chances to be taken there that would have changed the outcome without causing the big one.
Well, and I don't think that people were riding, because the only thing I'll disagree with is I don't think they were riding to be content. I think that the nature of this car is they're stuck together.
I think the fact that they were content, other than causing a big one, or knowing that they could not better themselves. I think in that respect,
if you're Kyle Larson and you're second on the bottom row, there's not even an outside to go to.
No.
There, you can't go inside, yellow line, and you're gonna. And also, even if there were an outside to go to, if you're William Byron, who's second place on the top row, if you're William Byron, you pull outside, your teammates to your inside. All right, at one point he had Alex Bowman pushing him, and maybe they could have, but it would have been just two cars, and they would have just got
if you're Kyle
out.
Larson, are you sitting there thinking, all right, how can I help my teammate? How can I do this to where I can help my teammate? And Chevrolet's win the race instead of Ford's winning the race, because he could have made a move on Cindric, I believe, and changed the outcome. But
like maybe he could have gone 3 wide middle in the tri-oval. It would have.
But I don't think this would have helped the team as a whole. I think it would have been a big risk, and I think both those cars saw that, and that's where I say content may not be the right word to you, but it's the right word to me, because
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that they were going to be there and not cause anything to keep those cars from staying up front and having a good day, a good finish.
Yeah, well, there's just that. There's the risk outpaid the reward as far as trying to get out of line. And also the lines were stuck together. There wasn't even hardly a place to go. There was a point, though, where the fate really got sealed when Austin Cindric, who again won the race, let me just say Austin Cindric won. That's a big deal, especially that big points penalty he had for the crash that he conducted at Coda, where now none of those points even really matter anymore. All right. So Austin Cindric won. He was pulling Kyle Larson and Ryan Preece third back on the bottom line. They got 3 cars ahead of the top lane, and Preece jumped out in front of Byron and took control of the outside lane. Preece almost, disqualification aside, Preece almost won that race. That would have been the move to win the race right there with several laps to go. And that's the part when William Byron and Kyle Larson got asked, what could you have done? You were the second cars. They both said, well, I got to go look at the tape. That's what everybody said. I got to go look at it. I don't know. I got to go look at it. Because that's now, they just analyze this to the bone. But they said that was the point where if the Chevys could have had control of the outside lane, something maybe could happen. The issue here, though, is there's a penalty for pulling out of line, and the cars are so stuck together, even when they're going all out. At the end, they were not fuel saving. They were going all out. You couldn't create gaps and build runs. They were all just together. It's just like being in Atlanta traffic. There was no place to go. You're just stuck together. And that's something that, as much talk as there's been about the short track package and fixing it, as much pressure, Goodyear in the tires, and they barely changed tires in this race, by the way. It was all fuel managing, saving strategy. They've got to start talking about the super speedway car. That's 4 races a year, and really 4 of the biggest races of the year, including the regular season finale at Daytona. Of course, the Daytona 500, and then everything in between there with the 2 Talladega races, including the playoff race. This doesn't happen in Atlanta because it's a different dynamic. They got to work on the super speedway car for sure. Let's look through here the top 10. Dan made some great points. So did you, Devin. The energy in the crowd, the energy in the pack, and we didn't have the big one. We saw, I think it was Jeff Gluck, or no, NASCAR Insights sent out a X post after the race. It was the longest green flag run in a Talladega race since 2004. It went the entirety of stage number 3 to the green, or to the checkered flag there, and of course no overtimes, anything like that. So
Doug, I think when you look at when the teams go back and look at the tapes and they look at all of this and just want to close on this, is the fact that the strategy is going to be next time is teammates. You're not going to be side by side when it comes down to 20 laps or 10 laps to go. You're going to have to be in line, in file, to be able to make a move on someone. That this side by side, especially being in the second, third, or fourth row, isn't going to get it done with this Gen 6 car, Gen 7 car.
Right. Well, figuring out how to be all in the same row or something. But
Yep.
Even that's a tough one to orchestrate there if it's all done under green, right? If you're not doing the choose cone, that's a tough one to orchestrate.
That's when you do the brake check.
Yeah, do the brake checks at the end of pit road. God, okay. Sorry, I just had the ick factor there. Okay, so Austin Cindric, 3rd career win, and he won the 2022 Daytona 500. He won Gateway last year. That was Penske's first win a year ago, and here he is this season getting Penske's first win, right? Isn't that Penske's first win of the year? I believe it is.
Yeah.
Blaney hasn't won. Logano hasn't won, right?
Yeah, I think that is. Yeah, that is Penske's first.
And unless we're including Josh Berry, who's built by him, but that's technically Wood Brothers. Mm-hmm. So Austin Cindric wins. Kyle Larson has, by far and large, his best ever super speedway race. He scored the most points on the day, 54 points. Only led 3 laps. He finished second. Third went to William Byron. How about Noah Gragson sneaking up there into 4th spot there toward the end? 5th went to Chase Elliott. He was 7th at the finish, but then you had the DQs for Ryan Preece and Joey Logano. We'll get to it in just a moment. That was Chase Elliott at 5th. Carson Hocevar rode the Dente into 6th. He looked great the entire race there, made some big-time moves in that Spire Motorsports. We'll talk about Spire, a big move for them here in just a moment. He was 6th. 7th went to Alex Bowman. He got jammed up a little bit there at the end of the race. He was pushing William Byron from the 4th position outside on the top row, and he ended up finishing 7th. Bubba Wallace scored the 2nd most points on the day and won stage 2. He finished 8th. Daniel Suarez came back from a pit road speeding penalty to finish 9th, and Austin Dillon ended up at the 10th spot. Dillon, there was, did you catch wind of this, Devin? What happened with Austin Dillon? It was during the stage 2 pit stop. There was a major miscommunication on his radio. Richard Boswell, his crew chief, told Dillon to pit, and it was the wrong lap. And he had no one to pit with. He pitted by himself. And I didn't hear this was, I heard like MRN talking about it, so I didn't hear the communication myself. But there was a big meltdown on that team radio there from the Dillon team, because there's only so many places you could screw up here. It's like everybody's going all out and doing all that, like pit on the right lap. And Richard Boswell, the crew chief, told him to pit on the wrong lap, and he had no drafting help. Kyle Busch had pitted just before him because his car was still out of alignment after that first crash of the race, and he had corded tires. So he pitted by himself too. Austin Dillon pitted by himself. You think they could have coordinated to do that? Oh, I don't know, together. Okay, but anyway, and then just to mention the wrecks real quick, there weren't any, quote, big ones. The biggest crash of the day, though, was entering pit road during the stage one set of pit stops, where basically it seems like Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch, and Josh Berry all started checking up. And as Kyle Busch described it on Door Bumper Clear podcast this week, basically Berry was angling out of the way to not run into Brad as they were checking up, and Berry just barely made contact with Kyle Busch's car that knocked him into Brad. That's basically what happened, according to Kyle anyway. What it did is it eliminated Keselowski from the race, 36. Ryan Blaney just got tagged in it, 37th. And then the Josh Berry machine ended up, he got a speeding penalty toward the end, finished 26th. They were knocked out of the race. And then on the stage 2 restart, you had Denny Hamlin push his teammate Christopher Bell. Hamlin said on his podcast this week, I was pushing him like normal. We weren't even to full speed yet, and they just got misaligned. Bell nailed the inside wall, took out Chris Buescher, and they ended up finishing Buescher 34th, Bell 35th. And then, of course, the two cars at the back of the race there who completed all 188 laps, but they got disqualified, were Ryan Preece and Joey Logano. Your stage 1 winner was Kyle Busch over William Byron, and there they were finishing 3rd and 4th, or whatever it was, 2nd and 3rd in this race. So, Dan, you had an issue with there being disqualifications. You already said that. What? I mean, if you find a car illegal, I don't think you have an issue then throwing it out. It's the fact that it gets found illegal after the race, not before it, right?
Yeah, in things that visually should have been seen or checked before the car got to pit road, before the race began.
Yeah.
And this was always the big argument, was if the car is presented to NASCAR, it goes through their technical process before the race starts, then on deals like this where you can openly see it, is it or is it not NASCAR's responsibility to see this and find this before the race, not after the race? And I don't know. I saw the rear end and trailing arm that was from Jesse Love's car
at Talladega. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at Rockingham.
And is that legitimate? Is it not? Okay, the rule is the rule on that, and things come loose in the race. Are you going to give any thought to the fact that this could have come loose by itself? Is it something overlooked? Is it a legitimate? Okay, but this process of not knowing and wait till after the inspection process and then knowing the outcome of the race, because it would be like leaving Talladega. Devin, when did you find out that the DQs happened?
It's funny because I was listening to the post-race show on Sirius XM, and there was no mention of the DQs at all.
Yeah.
Well, how late did the post-race show go, though? 2 hours?
Huh?
They didn't know 2 hours after the race? Because
I guess
like the news came in during the teardown that Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi do, and that was about 2 hours after.
They didn't say anything on.
It was several hours on Facebook when I saw it come down on Facebook,
Yeah.
and I thought to myself, this is not a real story, because you can't trust anything that comes down. Most of the time, you have to go back and check and make sure. So by the time I got through the process of me checking to make sure that was legitimate, was several hours later, and it's like, okay, this is love this. Just have an idea of how the race. You watched it, it finished up, you thought this was the way it finished up, and no, it's not.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point. Should they check more things before the races to alleviate this? I don't know. I mean, you got to think that teams would figure out ways to still get around that, and it would still require the cars to be inspected after. And the thing that I don't understand in the inspection process is how can you determine, not so much in this race, all right, because there weren't any big crashes except for those, there were two, but they were early, is if something is damaged in a crash and knocked out of whack versus whatever. Now, let's be clear what the disqualifications were, and I think they were pretty cut and dry. Joey Logano's team, the 22, he was going to be his first top 5 of the year, was missing a bolt in one of the braces on the back of the spoiler, all right? You miss a bolt, that means the spoiler is more likely to move. The lower the spoiler is, the faster the car can go. In Ryan Preece's case, they had 3 shims under the spoiler to lift it up instead of 2, and the 2 is the maximum you're allowed to have. So that could also angle the spoiler just a little bit. That's the gray, or not the gray area, that's not gray, but that is the small box within these teams are working to get any kind of advantage when these cars are all running the same speed.
This is where I'm
Can't pull out of
saying we're
line, all
splitting
that.
atoms and getting too technical, and we're creating a whole lot more monsters than we are solving problems. Because
Yeah.
if we're going to do this, let's just delay. Okay, so let's just delay victory lane 24 hours so that we can make sure the cars get through inspection, and let's delay all of the final results till everything is over and done. Nothing is official till it's official.
No, oh, okay. Yeah.
Then break out the champagne the next day.
Break out the champagne in North Carolina every time. Yeah.
That's right. The next,
Oh,
yeah, you
goodness.
can do that the next race. You can have a victory lane and champagne the next race for the previous race.
Well, because of Joey Logano's disqualification, that would have been his first top 5 of the year. He still has only 1 top 10 this season. And remember, he was dog crap at Bristol.
Where is he sitting in the points right now?
Well, that's where I was getting. He is tied with Ross Chastain for 10th of the points, but Chastain gets it. Chastain with 5 top 10s this year somehow. He's so nondescript as Ross Chastain, but Joey Logano sits 11th. Ryan Preece was in playoff contention on points there, but now with being relegated to last place, he fell 4 spots to 18th. 18th in the standings, or he was technically second to last in this race, but that's the same number of points. And Ryan Preece there, who was within a scotch of winning his first ever race instead, is now falling out of the playoffs there. Other things to look at is the points. I mean, it's still going to be William Byron leading the regular season standings by 31 markers over Kyle Larson. Larson leads the series in stage wins. Byron leads them in stage points. And then on the back end of that, Ty Gibbs fell 2 spots to 22nd. Remember, we were documenting how much Ty Gibbs was up, you know, sorry, in the back of the points. Now he's gone up, and now it's fallen back to 22nd. But then let's get into the cold as ice area. Brad Keselowski crashes out early at one of the few races where you're like, Brad really could win. 32nd in the points, 3 DNFs this year, no top 10s. 32nd in the points. He is in win-only territory, my people. He technically could go on a tear. And I saw somewhere this is the worst 10-race stretch of his entire career. You know, we're talking now, I think 17 full years in Cup. 20,
All right, is it time for him to retire? Is this when you think about retiring?
Yeah, no, I don't know that it's all performance. Some of it's performance. A lot of it's bad luck, and sometimes mistakes. I mean, it's hard to, if he was just getting lapped all the time, be like, okay, he just didn't have the speed. But
I've got to say, Doug, this is the period that Dale Sr. got into before his win or come back and win, however you want to put it.
Yeah.
As respectfully as possible. But all drivers, I think, go through these. We see Kyle Busch is definitely in one of these slumps. And is he going to stick with it and come back? Is it one of those things where this pretty much ends your career? We don't know. It's fate's going to have to take the hand in this one.
Well, for sure. Fate does have, I mean, much as we want to say luck doesn't matter, you know, fate does have some play in this for sure. That's a great point, Dan. So with Keselowski 32nd in points there, also need to point that Cole Custer has passed Shane Van Gisbergen. Now, Custer is 34th in points, Van Gisbergen 35th. They both had a miserable run this year. And Cody Ware is still 36 in the standings, 54 total points this year. The next driver up, Van Gisbergen, has almost double that, 106. Tough there for the Rick Ware team. But Cody Ware was in the middle of the top 10 a good bit in the middle of that race there, and he had some stuff come apart toward the end of that race that derailed all of that. Now, in Saturday's events, before we get to some news stories of the week, Saturday had quite the competitive race. and it was Austin Hill going to victory lane again, but just barely in a literal photo finish because a caution flag came out with Connor Zilic getting just KO'd into the inside wall off of the bumper of Jesse Love. Austin Hill goes to victory lane now, even though they have more super speedway races per year. But technically, he is the winningest super speedway driver in the history of the Xfinity Series. I think it's 9 wins now off the top of my head. And so he won in that photo finish over Jeb Burton, who just kicked and screamed and pouted after the end of that race. So to me, it was pretty obvious on the camera shot that Hill's car was ahead when they threw the yellow. I don't know what he was complaining about, but heartbreaker for Jeb Burton, who's won twice at Talladega. He finished second. Jesse Love ended up third in that race. Fourth went to Justin Allgaier, and with his best ever Xfinity Series finish in fifth, Matt DiBenedetto for Viking Motorsports. Devin, what did you think of the Xfinity proceedings on Saturday?
I thought the Xfinity race was pretty good. The cars were able to move around, and we got a really exciting finish at the end of the race. I feel bad for Connor Zilic at the end. Kind of felt like he got punted there at the end, and then he had the photo. He had the turn 3 entrance to turn 3 photo finish. But I thought the Xfinity race on Saturday was pretty good.
There's definitely a lot of movement. They had a couple of crashes that wadded up some stuff, but there were only 7 or so DNFs in this race. Like it wasn't as bad as you would expect, especially considering how Martinsville went. All right, but for the Xfinity Series there, and Catherine Legg was involved in one there. She's gotten a lot of backlash on social media. I'm going to save that for my deal at the end of the show there, but she didn't seem to cause the crash that people were saying that she was all in the middle of there. So. Also a tough break for Parker Retzloff there, who qualified 33rd and ended up having mechanical issues and then crashing, trying to avoid a crash, basically, and that the big wreck that took out Ryan Sieg there late in that race. The Xfinity Series will also be at Texas coming up, along with the Truck Series and, of course, the Cup Series here this coming weekend. We'll look at the entry list and give you the weekend schedule here in just a moment. And then lastly, too, the first race of the weekend was ARCA right before the Xfinity Series race. That's another one. ARCA has a weird rule where they can have a caution on the white flag lap and still re-rack it, but I don't understand how the race ended under a photo finish. I don't get that. But they had a crash at the very end of that race. Lawless Allen gets his first career win. He's a former full-time Truck Series driver, but he's been a full haul in ARCA the last 2 years, and he wins. Lawless Allen does for Venturini Motorsports. And did y'all talk about this last week? I didn't catch it if you did, but Venturini Motorsports will be no more at the end of the season. They're selling to Nitro Motorsports. That news came out middle of last week. I guess they announced it actually maybe Friday at Talladega, so that was after the show was recorded. But Nitro Motorsports is fielding 2 cars, including the 70 that Amber Balkan's running. So they're already teammates, basically, and Nitro is going to take over Venturini, kind of the same way Spire took over Kyle Busch Motorsports, I guess, in that sense. But that's a long run, 30, 40-plus years in the ARCA Series, and one of the winningest teams ever there. So, Dan, I saw the look on your face when I said that about that, but that's a big deal to see a team hold it up.
That is a huge deal because you think of ARCA, you think Venturini because they've been around for such a long time. And I can remember when they brought the all-girl pit crew in.
Yeah.
And I don't know what decade that was.
They won a championship. Those in the 80s.
It was in the 80s, I know, but man, oh man, those girls, I think several of those I know that I had talked to were from the Chicago or from
that's where the Venturinis are from, yeah.
Yeah, and they were tough-looking gals. I'd hate to have said anything wrong because you could have been DQ'd right there.
TKO'd. Okay.
Yeah, DQ'd right there.
Oh my gosh, you're amazing, Dan. You're amazing. But yeah, that's a big time era change right there. They're a big Toyota development team, and they'll be no more. They're going to basically complete the sale to Nitro Motorsports in October when the season is over. So, cheers.
Does anybody know any of the history with Nitro?
I do not know. I think they've just gotten into ARCA. So I hope they continue it. You never know. Sometimes these teams sell out and then it just fizzles out. But Nitro has run competitively with them, so I think this is just going to be a way for them to slide out and slide out on top. What you don't like seeing in any case is when people are at the top and then they stay longer and then they go bankrupt. In this case, it's probably just time to move on. maybe they got offered a deal they couldn't refuse. Who knows? I'll be interested when I'm hanging out with Wendy Venturini on pit road this weekend, PRN, how much she'll be able to say about it. But I know she's really proud of what her family's team has done.
Yeah, and how much involvement are they going to still have in the team once it is sold? How involved are they going to stay?
I think the deal, and I don't want to speak too much out of turn, but I think that Billy, so Bill Venturini's dad, Billy is Wendy's brother, Bill's son. I think he has agreed to stay on with them in some sort of managerial role for a certain amount of time. So I think there's still an exit strategy there, but I think he's going to help them with that transition, if I read correctly. So we'll have more on that.
Nitro comes in and doesn't blow up.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? But congrats to Lawless Allen getting his first career win there, and congrats to Austin Hill for going down as one of the GOATs in the Xfinity Series, at least on these kind of tracks. One more for the Xfinity Series, and it was fitting that Leland Honeyman was sponsored by Mesrano, Alabama Injury Lawyers, because Leland Honeyman managed to spin out taking the choose at Talladega. All right. Now, Leland Honeyman got torched by Anthony Alfredo a couple of weeks ago. I think it was at Darlington, for making a real erratic or reckless move that tore up their cars on the track. And Anthony Alfredo just tore into him about experience and not being able to keep his car under control and multiple issues with him. And here he is spinning out at Talladega, number one, where, drivers don't usually just spin out on their own, under caution, taking the choose cone. I don't know what more to say about it than, but we've seen a couple of those moments in Xfinity this year. Chris Wright cleaning out pit road, coming to a green flag pit stop. Whatever we saw in Martinsville, whatever miscarriage that was, and then this Leland Honeyman thing are just a few that you're going, what are we doing? So some interesting stuff there. It's starting to be the NASCAR ARCA Xfinity Series. Maybe ARCA will be the title sponsor of the Xfinity Series next year. I don't know. But nonetheless, any more thoughts from Talladega, boys, before we move on?
I think Kyle Larson was the only driver to finish inside the top 10 in both stages on Sunday.
Let's have a look. Yeah, that seems right. He won stage one, by the way. Leads the series, I think I mentioned before, with 5 stage victories. Let's look at the stage stuff here, because I want to confirm that. That's crazy, by the way, especially with them not making the kind of runs and passes. So, yeah, that looks to be correct. Kyle Larson finished first in stage 1 and second in stage 2. Yeah, I don't think any of the other cars matched up. So that's pretty decent little stat there, Dev.
My favorite Larson Talladega story was in 2021, back when there was no practice or qualifying. The team forgot to take something out of the engine that was in the shop, and the car just blew up on lap 2.
Oh, I remember. Gosh, wow. That's a good memory. That's your favorite Kyle Larson memory, huh?
No, it's just a memorable one for because it's like, for how high of a level organization they are, they forget a simple thing and it ruins Larson's day on lap 2.
Maybe they forgot to put oil in it.
Oh, God. Yeah, they forgot to drop some Valvoline in there. Hey, by the way, BJ McLeod dropped out of this race 33rd with overheating issues. They put a picture on social media. There's one more social thing I want to talk about that was big from this weekend, by the way. Oh, my gosh. But BJ McLeod, they had a piece of metal that looked like a shim, all right, or a bolt or something that was stuck in the radiator of the car, all right? And they said, hey, Ryan Preece, this belong to you? Because he had, or no, Joey Logano. It was a bolt. It was Joey Logano because he had the thing missing from his spoiler. Like, hey, this belong to you, man.
All right, Devin, going. Before we leave Talladega, is this going to make you more or less inclined to go back to Talladega again?
Oh, I'm gonna say this, because I spent money on tickets. And look, I'll go to races. I'll continue to go to races for media or whatnot. But the people in my section spent over $100. I spent over $100 too for these tickets. And what we got for the race on Sunday, is it worth coming back or not? Some people like the racing, some people don't. But you got to think about this as a race fan. We spent, and I just went by myself. So if there was multiple people in your group, you spent well over $100. So you just have to think about it in that aspect. I'll be back at Talladega, but I can't speak for other people. And this was the biggest crowd that I've seen there since I started going in 21.
Yeah, they got to do something to fix the Super Speedway Daytona Talladega package. Don't do anything to Atlanta. Atlanta's pretty good, but those tracks, you got to do something. So we got short tracks on there, Yeah, it's super speedways. I could say you can do a little more tweaking on the road courses. So all we've got is the intermediates, which is Texas this coming weekend. We'll get to get that in just a moment.
And by the way, you want to take a look at the schedule that's coming up? You got Texas, Kansas, Charlotte, Nashville, Michigan. You got the Mexico City race, Pocono, Atlanta, Chicago Street Course, Sonoma. We don't have another short track until August.
We'll see what
through
they
the
do.
Brickyard, we might be on a good stretch.
I mean, you have North Wilkesboro All-Star race.
All-Star race.
We'll get into that in a moment. Before we pull out of Talladega, all right, by the way, a couple things. Number one, find Talladega Super Speedway's social media accounts. The what people left behind is fantastic. The ones I don't understand are the entire couches that are like actual couches. All right, I get throwaway what are baby swimming pools, mountains of beer
Hey, Doug,
cans.
have you been to the dump lately and paid the price for dumping anything at the dump?
Why are you bringing an actual couch to Talladega is my question.
Because I want to get rid of that couch. I'm going to use it while I'm there, but I'm going to leave it and get rid of it while I'm there. And I'm going to save myself about $30.
Hey, if I brought a couch to Talladega too, I'd leave it there as well.
I would leave it there.
This podcast
and we don't know what
Why
happened.
would we can't say anything smarter than what we've just said right then. And by we, I mean y'all.
Hey, to Dan's point, we don't even know what happened on the couch.
Yep.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, let's run a black light on that. No.
Let's not do that, but we assume it's somebody look like the cat hacked up.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Some cats did something on there. Hey,
Yep.
By the way, I just thought of this. We did this whole thing and didn't mention that Devin's older brother, Cletus McFarland, did run the ARCA race. And I got to say, I never heard of him. Some rundowns will say Garrett Mitchell, his real name, but his YouTube persona is Cletus McFarland. They just need to change that on the entry blank. And he's downright hilarious. There was all sorts of content he did with Greg Biffle and Dale Jr. on YouTube. Dale Jr. gave him a rundown in a rental Tahoe of what the track's like. He let Dale Jr. drag race a number 3 souped up, Craftsman truck in the middle of the infield. And then he goes out there and runs the Rhett Jones car. They had engine issues early in that race, but managed to stay on the lead lap, I think. And he ended up finishing 10th. And my opinion of Cletus McFarland before, when he's a YouTube influencer who's managed to get enough money to buy an ARCA ride, I didn't realize until watching some of his content that he actually builds and races cars. It's not the same like traditional racing, but they have these Freedom 500 races where they race old Crown Vics around a short track. So he knows how to drive. In fact, I'd say he's more qualified than probably half of the drivers in the ARCA field as far as car control and knowledge of a race vehicle. Okay. And I like the vibe he's bringing. The thing I don't appreciate is he's just Ricky Bobby in real life. And it seems like it's almost making fun of ARCA. It's hard to tell what's real and what's fake with Cletus McFarland there. Because they asked him, what advice did Dale Jr. and Greg Biffle give you or something? Amanda Busick on pit road asked him that. He's like, well, he told me da-da-da in the draft, then I just got to make sure and tuck my eagle wings in there. Tuck those eagle wings in before I make a pass, And I'm like, okay.
Well, doesn't this fit right in with the internet, what's real anyway?
Oh, that's true. But I appreciate it. I'm mostly here for it there. Hey, Dev, I mean, that's someone you weren't really turned on to that until he got in NASCAR, right? Have you any
I know of who he is, and there was a thing that came out yesterday that Adam Stern put out that had added – okay, the number was about 30 to 40 – yeah, here it is. NASCAR gained between 20 to 30,000 new subscribers on its official YouTube page over the last day after having an in-car camera for Cletus McFarland during the ARCA race.
Can't complain about that. If it turns out what people think, so the reason people dogged Talladega Nights in 2006, like people in the sport is, it just makes us look like a bunch of whatevers, right? But it brought it mainstream. But then now you have someone actually doing the Ricky Bobby thing.
Now you're proving the movie was real.
It's like it's not. It's like he's acting. Like his name's not even Cletus McFarland. That's the part where I'm struggling a little bit. I mean, I know it's entertaining, but I'm mostly for it. Okay, and I'd love to meet him, and I like some of the content. I don't have time to watch all his stuff, but him inviting Tony Stewart out to a racetrack and racing with 20 other people in old Crown Victorias in the Freedom 500. Like, I'm here for it. That was real racing, man. That was as real as it gets. I mean, it was awesome. So that I can't complain too much about that. All right. One last thing for the Talladega side-splitting laughter files here. Joey Logano, and I didn't actually hear the radio transmission itself. I heard Jeff Gluck reading it on the Teardown podcast. Joey Logano MF'd the H out of his out of his teammate Austin Cindric coming to the stage 2 conclusion. And basically because Austin Cindric had backed off of Logano's rear bumper there, and that allowed the Toyota line to get ahead of Bubba Wallace to win stage number 2. Joey Logano, in heat of the moment, your helmet's on, adrenaline pumping. You know, I mean, it literally MF'd him on the radio and went on a big-time meltdown about that for a stage conclusion, by the way. Austin Cindric got asked about it afterwards and said, I backed off of him because if I kept pushing him like that, we were going to wreck, which sounds fair to me. After the race, Logano got asked about it, and he didn't give a whole lot of congratulations to Austin Cindric. He kind of tamped it down. So, okay, teammates, they have that. I've heard that plenty of times, Talladega before. I think number one, I think drivers need to be a little more conscious, knowing that everything they say goes out on the radios. And when you say something so extreme about a teammate or a friend or whoever, that's a little much. But number 2, Chipper Jones, Atlanta Braves great, Hall of Famer. Did you see this, Devin? Chipper Jones, who likes NASCAR. I've met him at Talladega before, all right, on the media side. Chipper Jones went off about this on X, all right, basically saying, congrats to Austin Cindric. Your teammate MF'd you on national television, da-da-da-da-da. And then when Joey Logano got disqualified after the race, he said, happiest day of my life. And he tagged Joey Logano in it. Chipper Jones, the Hall of Famer. I mean, that's wild, man. That is wild. I don't know. Did you see that, Dev?
Yeah, I saw some of the stuff that he posted on X. I'm looking through it again. And he
Chipper Jones,
retweets
I think
the
he
Bob
had the
Hawkers.
bourbon out, buddy. I think he had the bourbon out.
He retweeted one of Bob Hawkers' posts about Priest getting DQ'd and Logano. He's like, my day just keeps getting better.
Yeah,
oh
that's
my gosh.
Yes, that's fantastic. And I don't think it's because of Priest either. I don't think he had any problem with Ryan Priest. Okay,
I think Logano was in that post as well.
If I'm Joey Logano, I'm going, man, what did I do to Chipper Jones? NASCAR Chasm put out, his NASCAR Chasm's level of humor to me is just stratosphere. NASCAR Chasm put out. I'm sorry, I'm cracking. He put out a thing that said, that Facebook has the Mark Safe, and NASCAR Chasm put Mark Safe from Chipper Jones today. I decided to say this one. Anyway, a lot of stuff to come out of Talladega. I wish we were talking more about the great racing that was coming out there. Let's move to something else, okay? 2 big stories came out between when this show was recorded last week and now. One of them is All-Star Race. There's a couple of things about it. There's different segment stages. I don't even know that anybody really cares what the segments and stages are. Do we really want to talk about the promoter's caution or not? I've heard so many people complain about it. I don't feel like getting into it. Okay. Like
No.
I just, okay. Sorry. Are you trying to share a screen, Devin?
I was going to share the Mark Safe from Chipper Jones.
Okay, that's fine. Well, just everybody trust it. For some reason, it's not letting you do it, and I can't figure it out.
Well, no, we strayed away from the conversation.
Yeah, that's all good. But yeah, trust us, it happened. No, so there's a promoter's caution that has to get thrown between certain laps late in the race, and SMI, so Marcus Smith or someone in his contingent will be doing that. People have complained about it. It's an all-star race. If it was a real race, I'd have a lot more issue. Here's the part that came out. Bozy Tatarevich has started his own podcast, Bozy's Breakdown. Literally, it's only 2 episodes old. Comes out right after the race on Sundays. And he mentioned in his first episode that teams were offered a run what you brung scenario. Either no rules or few rules. We're learning now that there were going to be some rules, but a lot more open rule book for the all-star race, but that the teams turned it down because of the cost. All right. Which seems understandable. But Dan, when you hear this, when you hear these teams complain about the rule book is so dense now, we have such a small platform for these cars to operate, blah, 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 blah. NASCAR says, hey, okay, all-star race, come on out, do what you got to do. And the teams turn it down, Dan. Do you think this is sort of talking out of both sides of your mouth here? What did you think just as a fan or as an observer of the sport, Dan, when you saw the potential for a run what you brung all-star race?
Well, if you thought that was going to be for real, and you're probably going to get DQ'd I know I'm hung up on the DQ'd, but if you're going to get DQ'd after the race is over for something you assumed was going to be legal to run, but I agree. Getting into this deal of making one-off races during the course of a year when you're trying to run for a championship, to me, this isn't what you want to promote. Let's go and do the All-Star race as it is, straight up by the book, and let's just keep things consistent for I think I've got thing. Yeah, that's how good it is.
Something
Let's
got
keep
DQ'd
things
over there.
consistent for what they are, and let's keep the rules and so forth to where that at the end of the race we're still not going to know who won.
Okay, that sounds good. That Dan for team rules and chaos at the same time. That's
Yep.
wild. All right,
Yep.
Devin, what about you? Did you get tantalized by this idea of run what you brought?
It sounds like Dairy Queen needs to enter the sport. That's what it sounds like needs to happen.
The NASCAR Dairy Queen series for the Xfinity cars.
Yeah. Or hey, this NASCAR disqualification was brought to you by Dairy Queen.
Hold on. Wait a second. Okay, wait. No. Imagine if it was called the Dairy Queen series. You'd have the Dairy Queen cars. But you know how they abbreviate the series on the schedule or media reports, right? Instead of it saying NXS, it would say NDQS.
I'd still rather run the Burger King car. I want it my way. Have it my way.
Fantastic. Man, gosh, I miss the Burger King sponsorships. We need those.
Yep.
Hey, I love the Whoppers. I don't eat them very often, but Whoppers from Burger King I like the Whoppers.
That's
They're
fair.
good.
Okay,
but
respond right here.
Yeah.
Respond right here.
Who has the best burgers? Who has the best burgers? Oh wait, I can't say that. I work at Culver's. Hold up, can't say that.
Yeah, Butterburgers. Look out.
But to go about the bring what you have, I think that's an interesting concept. I wonder how different the cars would look. Not significantly different, but it's a bring what you have. I don't know if you can mess with aero stuff or whatnot. This being North Wilkesboro.
It was going to be a shorter play. I think basically they were going to let them. So what Kyle Busch talked about, Denny Hamlin, there were some things like you could. Kyle Busch said it wasn't like you could just run whatever car you wanted. Like you had to start with this platform and have most of the same things. But yeah, maybe you choose to run a floor or not. You could run some, as Kyle Busch put it on Door Bumper Clear, you could run some wickers or not, some different aero things, and maybe also open up the engines. That was the other thing, is maybe they were just going to be able to run more horsepower. And even so, it wasn't like they're just going to build a new race car from scratch to run the $1 million All-Star race, which it doesn't pay very well after that $1 million. Okay, it doesn't run.
It's run what you bring, but know that there's going to be rules and consequences if you do bring something that we don't like.
Basically, it's crossing out a few rules of the rule book. It would have been interesting to see if maybe I'd love to have them run without the floors, period, or especially on short tracks, but nonetheless, not going to happen. The other thing in the All-Star race they have, we were trying to piece through this before the show started today. There's a manufacturer showdown where basically whichever manufacturer in the All-Star race has the least number of cars in it, which more than likely will be Toyota, they'll take, let's say there's 6 Toyotas in the All-Star race, they'll take 6 Toyotas, 6 Fords, 6 Chevys. They'll take the top 6 based on their starting position in the final race. And then the ones who add up to the lowest number in the finish, right? The lowest number based on their finishing position. So you can't win the race and then have everybody else finish 20th or worse and win the manufacturer showdown. But if you're just like a golf, the lowest score wins. And they're going to have a manufacturer showdown baked within that. I don't know if that's going to change how anybody races, but it'll be some manufacturer bragging rights in it. That the promoters caution flag. I'm looking forward to the All-Star race in North Wilkesboro. I hope it's more exciting than it was last 2 years, because those were brow beaters by Kyle Larson and Joey Logano, respectively. Other big news, we went to Rockingham. Y'all covered all of that, whether it should be on the schedule, how much or not. I was, despite it being a sloppy Xfinity race, I liked what I saw there. Let's do that for a couple more years. All right, we don't need to, another Cup race. It's 6 in the same market. Okay. But besides that, we had a shocker on Wednesday. I think it was a shocker to me, because you do not have drivers and crew chiefs getting fired mid-season anymore. In the charter days of the Cup Series, you don't have that. You stick with unless it's like a major issue, you stick with your person. And Rodney Childers, a likely future Hall of Fame crew chief, got dismissed or mutually agreed to part ways from Spire Motorsports and number 7, Justin Haley. They had pedestrian, mediocre runs this year. They did run really well at Bristol. And basically, Jeff Dickerson, the co-owner of Spire, spoke to the media on Friday or Saturday and said, and I'm very much paraphrasing, but basically said it just wasn't, the chemistry wasn't right. You basically, you had an introverted crew chief, introverted driver, and just something was off there. And they thought, let's make a change now instead of ride through this whole season. We're on a 28 straight week run right now and doing that. Rodney Childers basically said the same thing. But I feel like there is something being unsaid here, Dan, and I don't know what it is. I will say Rodney Childers has always been super chill. He's a tough person to read, and he was one of the first people I talked to on the Cup Garage in Bristol. And somehow this happening to him makes my interaction with him make more sense, because he just seemed kind of like just sort of off, just sort of down when I talked to him. And not terrible or anything, Dan, but it makes me wonder if the way he was used to doing things at Stewart Haas and with Michael Waltrip Racing before that and on were just totally different than at Spire Motorsports. Maybe he was used to being a rogue crew chief. That's some of his preseason comments, Dan, were when they were asking him, how do you make this organization better? And he goes, well, I'm just worried about doing my own thing. And I wonder if maybe there was a team concept missing, not to mention the lack of spark plug there on the 7. What do you think?
I think, Doug, Devin, I think if we all were privy to what goes on now within the teams, is the fact that you have no idea how the structure works. And to the outsider looking in, it looks as if these individual people have the ability to go in and change things and do things and get things done a little bit their way. But I'm telling you, on the outside, for a fact that there is less and less that individual people have to do. This is a collective deal now among the internal parts of the organization, to where that if changes are made, there are engineers involved, there are things involved that you have no idea what's going on in the inner workings. And even to your point of going in with cameras and doing things, I would love to see more of the internal workings of how these teams work and what behind the scenes is going on, because there's a lot hidden that you will never know. And I think this is part of it, and the frustrations that go with it.
Yeah, that's the frustrations. Yeah, the stuff that happens in those competition meetings or just in day-to-day interactions in the shop. You just don't see that very much. And it seems like,
I wish all of these meetings were streamed where that you could get the real story of what's going on. And if you want to make a hit streaming show, then go in and do these meetings as they're going on in real time.
Boy, there is a 24-hour NASCAR Tubi channel now, right? So yes, Devin, what did you think when you saw this news?
I thought it was interesting because I feel like Spire Motorsports brought Rodney Childers in to help build this team up. And it just felt like that this was going to be a long-term play. This is going to be a long-term move. He's going to be here for a couple of years, help build that program up. But now to not even make it through the first season, not even halfway through the first season,
9
it's
races.
like, well, what's going on over here at Spire that you had as you said, a Hall of Fame level crew chief leave the building essentially. It's kind of wild that this is happening, and I just doesn't look good for Spire Motorsports because it seems like they can't keep the good talent in.
Well, it's going to be like
doesn't look good for Rodney.
The proof's in the pudding of how they perform after this happens.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. So Ryan Sparks, who was Corey LaJoie's crew chief and was there, I think, from the beginning of the new era of Spire. When Corey LaJoie joined Spire Motorsports, Ryan Sparks came with him from the 32 car of Go Fast Racing for the 2021 season. So Ryan Sparks has got a couple hundred or so, maybe not a couple hundred, but over 100 races as crew chief. And he was with Justin Haley after Spire made that swap with Rick Ware Racing late last season to bring Haley into the fold. So it's also interesting, too. You had Ryan Sparks get elevated to competition director. You had Spire hire Matt McCall, who had been Brad Keselowski's crew chief on the 6 car, hire him and bring him over. And then you had Ronnie Childers there too. There may have been a lot of big dogs in a small dog pen over there. Maybe just it wasn't vibing. And then Michael McDowell brings Travis Peterson over from front row. All right. You got the combination of Luke Lambert and Carson Hocevar on the 77. There may have just been a lot of firepower in that place. And that could have been, let's get all the people here. It's sort of like what the Braves are doing right now, where they're just continuing to stockpile arms and outfielders and just see who shakes out on top. It could have been one of those, but that's an expensive play to make with Ronnie Childers, who I'm sure chased the money going over there too, right? You got to think. But we'll see where he lands. I'm sure he will get the crew chief on a Cup car again, and I wouldn't be surprised if his availability doesn't happen later this season. There's one more thing that I haven't heard people talk about very much in this story. His car chief from Stewart Haas Racing on the 4-car, Cheddar Bob Smith, went with him went to Spire, and Ronnie Childers joined him over there. All right. Cheddar Bob got hired and put on the 54 of Ty Gibbs mid-season. Again, you don't see car chiefs come out mid-season like that either. I mean, these teams are gelled together, or, they're run with your brung. Okay. But Cheddar Bob Smith left mid-season after being at Stewart Haas for a long time. Now Ronnie Childers, another big-name talent, popped out of there. And I'm wondering whatever might have caused Cheddar Bob to leave. Of course, that could have been a money thing too, is what played into Ronnie auguring his way out of there too, or getting dismissed. It sounded like, from all intents and purposes, that Ronnie probably would have wrote it out to get the paycheck, and Spire made the change. But not a lot more questions and answers for me after that one. But if Justin Haley, who didn't have much showing at Talladega, but if Justin Haley does run better, then I guess you'll know. Now that was big. So we had that big story. We had the All-Star race. Was there something else we missed? I don't think. We talked about the championship race last week. So now we look ahead to Texas, okay? Texas Motor Speedway, which is, gone from having 2 potent big-time races per year to having just the one race in the spring, site of Chase Elliott's last Cup win a year ago, and that was on a late restart, mind you. So they're going to line up and shake down this weekend. On the Cup Series side, again, you got your top 36 drivers. The only 2 open cars that are running, Jesse Love will be with Beard Motorsports, not with Childers, but with Beard in the 62 car that'll all intents be a Childers machine, and Chad Fincham will run for the Garage 66 Carl Long team as well. Look, on the Xfinity side, we'll have a lot more of soil to be tilled, if you will, a lot more change as far as that goes. Look at their entry list. Here they got about 10 different cars and drivers and things not full-time. Nick Lights will be in the 07 for SS Greenlight. Corey Day will bring that Hendrick Cars machine out, number 17. Riley Herbst, there you go. Will be jumping down to the Joe Gibbs 19. Catherine Legg will be back in the 32, and she announced a bigger schedule this year for both Cup and Xfinity to run the 32 in the Xfinity Series and the 78 in the Cup Series. Joey Gase will drive his own number 35. Georgia's Mason Massey will return to Alpha Prime in their 45 machine. Mason Maggio will be with the Joey Gase number 53. Leland Honeyman will try not to spin out under caution in the number 70 for the Cope family team. Dawson Cram, who's missed the last couple races, he'll be in the 74 for Mike Harmon. Josh Balicki will be in the number 91, and CJ McLaughlin will be a part-time teammate to them in car number 92. And then for the Truck Series, and then we'll get to the weekend schedule here in a moment. For the Truck Series, Brandon Jones will be in the 1 truck again. He got crashed out of Bristol. Nick Sanchez will jump down to Spire Motorsports, the team that he basically ran for in trucks, in the 07. Carson Hocevar will be in the number 7 truck, and Stephen Parsons will be for Young Motorsports in the number 20. They're bringing an extra truck over there. 32 drivers going. Oh, gosh. How about this? 32 teams, Dan, for 36 spots in trucks. The truck field will only have 32 teams attempting. That they could add 4 more if they wanted to. That's tough, man.
I'm telling you, this deal of where you're at just goes to show you how tough this really is to do, and it doesn't cease to amaze me on any given weekend what you see out of the fields and what you have to choose from.
Yeah. That's tough. It's tough for sure. By the way, and all of these times will be I need to judge. These are local time, right? Hold on the schedule. Yeah, I believe they are. So local time here. So Texas is in the Central Time Zone. So Friday, from 1:35 to 3:30 p.m. Basically, you have practice and then qualifying for the trucks. That's normally on FS1 or FS2. That'll be followed almost immediately by the Xfinity Series on the CW app, with practice and then qualifying from 4 to 6 p.m. And then at 7 p.m. Central, so 8 p.m. Eastern, it'll be the Truck Series race. It'll be a little bit of a late night there. Truck Series, that'll be 250-miler there for the weekend. Then just pulling the page down to Saturday to see what our schedule is. PRN, of course, well, the NASCAR Racing Network will have the Truck Series race with PRN crew, so I'll be on that. We're at Pit Road. For Saturday's events, you'll have Cup Series qualifying and practice from 10:05 to 12 p.m. Central, and then the race for the Xfinity Series will be at 1 p.m., so we'll hopefully get out of there at a decent time, barring any weather. Of course, the Xfinity race will be on CWTV and on PRN for radio. And then Sunday's Cup race will start at 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern, kind of the normal time. And that is the 400-miler there. So that'll be, I've got to look and see if that's on Fox or FS1. The race, thankfully, this week was on Big Fox, but they sure ran a lot of commercials, especially late in the event. And that was the last race for Artie Kempner. Artie Kempner, the longtime director of Fox. I think he'd been at Fox 31 years. I mean, he'd been on all of the NASCAR side. That's I don't know if y'all know much about Artie or not, but that's a big-time deal to see someone like that with that much institutional knowledge move on. Sunday's Cup race, 3:30 Eastern. On TV, it'll be FS1. Of course, you can hear it on PRN Sirius XM, by the way.
That's probably another casualty of AI.
I don't know. He's going to move to Monday Night Football, I think, is what he's moving to. So it's probably a step up. So we've gone Texas, Childers, All-Star, everything in and out of Talladega. You boys got anything else on your docket this week?
Yep. Does this basically start your longer run of the mid-size racetracks for the Cup Series? With the exception probably of Pocono and Michigan, I would imagine, because those to me are bigger tracks. With Pocono being a 2.5 miler, 3, it really is 6 turns. It's not 3 turns; it's 6 turns if you count that correctly. It's just an odd shaped racetrack.
It is.
And this to me is a little bit starting the boring part to me of this. The same racetracks kind of over and over again for a period of time for the Cup Series.
Well, I mean, you say boring, except in these cars, it's a little bit less. These cars, especially on the intermediates, like the less than 2 mile tracks, or the 1.5 miles, if they have some room to race, they can pull out a line, do some sleep.
This is another area of the schedule that I'd love to see shaken up to where that you have a better blend, if the word be correct, a better blend of road course, of short track, of so forth. And I know there's only 2 super speedways that we consider that, Daytona and Talladega. So, but I'd love to have a bigger mix of tracks in this stretch right here.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point for sure. All right, well, as we wrap things up here, I did just confirm, just looking to make sure. I thought I was right about it, but neither Penske or RFK are going to appeal their decision, so the disqualification stand. They both said that they were unintentional and didn't provide competitive advantage, that kind of thing. You know, the Penske one with the bolt loose for Joey Logano said that it happened during the course of the race. And the RFK situation, they said that it was an unintentional adjustment pre-race to correct a spoiler angle issue. So anyway, I guess they did that after inspection. Who knows? But nonetheless, let's get to our final thoughts here as we wrap up episode number 311 on Dale Earnhardt's birthday. Devin, since you're dressed better than all of us, you get to go first.
I was looking at Ticketmaster before the episode began. It looks like Texas Motor Speedway has a ton of tickets sold for this event. So there's very limited tickets available on Ticketmaster right now. So probably want to get your ticket if you're thinking about going on Sunday to the Cup race at Texas.
And be sure and get that racing electronic scanner, too, and listen on PRN there. We'll be looking forward to giving that broadcast to you there. So I'm glad to see a big crowd showing up in Fort Worth there. What about you, Dan?
Just looking forward to hopefully an exciting weekend where that the results after the race is over are the results after the race is over.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it's back-to-back weeks with Jesse Love and Rockingham, and then these second and fifth place cars at Talladega and Priest and Logano. Hey, on my side, Catherine Legg, I know why there's criticism. All right, I get it. And unfortunately, Catherine Legg is having happened to her what people in her situation would never want to happen, which is to get on TV when you're running in a 30th place car. All right. When you're running a 30th place car to get experience and get out there, sure, you want to be on TV pre-race and have your new sponsor. Hers is Elf Cosmetics and all that kind of stuff. But look, looking at Talladega, she got bad mouthed at Rockingham. She got middle of the crash at Talladega that she didn't cause, and she said that she's gotten just some of the most grotesque, violent messages sent to her on social media. There's no place for that. And maybe it's not my place to say this, but if you're just like with all the racist stuff with Bubba, okay, if you're going to get on and death threat any driver, all right, I don't care. I'm not saying this because Catherine Legg is female. If you're going to get there and death threat any driver, you're not a real race fan. All right. This ain't for you. You need help. Okay. I'm not saying you don't like racing, but that just isn't welcome here. All right. We could criticize people, MF people even, but the death threats and that kind of thing, and of course the sexist stuff, that needs to go. All right. So we try to be, we have opinions on this show. We try to form opinions on this show in a way that's backed up by fact and is not backed up by just passion and burnt out anger energy. And I am sorry that has happened to you, Catherine Legg. You are welcome here. I think you have an ambitious schedule right now, especially for cup races. I will say that. I'd like to see more truck and Xfinity get run, but nonetheless, she needs to be treated with respect, and that goes from the drivers as well. Okay, so that's my 10 cents there, making up for the 5 cents I didn't get to drop in last week. All right, so nonetheless, we appreciate everybody listening. This is on my YouTube channel. There's search Doug Turnbull on YouTube and find the one that has a username that looks like I haven't been there a lot. Okay, Doug Turnbull and a bunch of numbers. But get on YouTube. We're also on Apple and Spotify. Check out our Facebook page. Devin has some good video there from the grandstands. I'll try to post a little bit best as I can. I have PRN duties this weekend, so I'll be pretty well locked in on pit road there, but I'll try to do a little bit for y'all from the track, just like I did at COTA. I'll try to do that from Texas as well. Sure to hit us up, goprn.com, the Performance Racing Network app, or your local affiliates, or Sirius XM. And I think it's awesome we get to do truck races now. That's pretty cool on NRN. So, yeah. Boys, Devin, Dan, thank you so much for joining today. Appreciate y'all.
Of course.
Yeah. And Dan, I expect to see you romping around Dawsonville in that Ford denim jacket, okay? So let's make it happen, all right?
Well, if I do that, I think I might have a heat stroke right now, so I'm going to wait for cooler weather.
But don't want that.
Don't want that.
Gotcha. And Devin, you'll be jealous. We're having a PRN dinner at Cheddar's after the Saturday Xfinity race.
Oh.
I know.
Oh.
Yeah, that's going to be big. It's going to be big. So for Devin and Dan, I'm Doug. God bless you. Thank you for listening. And we will catch you next week after Texas Motor Speedway here on the 5 to Go podcast. Again, check out the Facebook page. We're all thankful for you, and we'll catch you
Doug,
next
it's great
time.
to have you back.
It's good to be back. Thanks for holding it down. We'll see you next week, everybody.